It was late, the daylight fading into the kind of darkness that makes the world feel just a little off. A routine evening for Brian Bethel, a journalist with a simple task: pay his internet bill and head home. But tonight, routine would crumble because on this night, something was waiting for him. Something that shouldn't exist. Something that wanted in. Brian sat parked outside a movie theater in Abilene, Texas, the glow of his dashboard light flickering against the edges of a check he was writing. A routine task, an ordinary moment. Then, it came sharp and deliberate against his driver's side window. Irritated at the thought that someone was about to ask for money, Brian looked over to see who was knocking at his window. Two boys stood outside, just watching. Brian rolled down his window and asked, "Can I help you?" They looked about 12 and 9. The 12-year-old kid had an olive skin tone and dark curly hair, and the 9-year-old had pale skin with freckles and red hair. Both had hooded sweatshirts and a strange feel about them. Something wasn't right. The hair stood on Brian's neck as the boy spoke. "Hey, mister," the tall one said, voice unnervingly calm. "We need a ride to our mom's house. We forgot our money and want to see the movie." Brian wasn't sure why, but the children terrified him. He knew it wasn't logical, and he knew it didn't make sense, but something inside Brian told him to be scared. "How far is your mom's house?" Brian asked the boys. "Oh, it's not far. Don't worry, it won't take long." Brian looked to the side, an advertisement of the movie Mortal Kombat in display. His instincts pressed against him like an iron weight. He calculated that even if he would drive the boys to their mother's place, they would only catch about 20 minutes of the movie they supposedly really wanted to see. "Something is wrong. Don't do it." The boy's voice took an unnatural cadence, reassuring yet obviously rehearsed. "It won't take long. We're just two kids. We don't have a gun. We're not going to hurt you." Clearly, the boy had sensed Brian was nervous. The words, so oddly placed, felt deliberate. Brian's hand hovered near the lock. "No, don't." Fighting the unnatural instinct of wanting to let the kids into his car. His pulse quickened. His subconscious screamed, "Whatever you do, don't let them in." His fear of the kids grew more and more. Something wasn't right. Brian looked away just for a second, and when he looked back at the kids, he realized their eyes. Black, completely black, no whites, no irises, just vast, endless voids swallowing all light. Brian realized what his gut feeling had been trying to tell him all along. He was in the presence of something otherworldly. Terror surged through Brian. He knew he had to get away or he would die. "Sorry, kids, I forgot something and, I have to go get it. I hope you find your ride." He began to roll up his window when the kid began pounding at the window with such force that he moved Brian's car. Brian feared the window would break. The younger boy's face twisted into confusion, as if Brian's resistance defied everything they had come to expect. It wasn't working, and it was clear the kids weren't expecting that. The taller boy's tone shifted, growing firmer, more unnatural. "Mister," he said with quiet force, "we can't come in unless you say it's okay." Terror surged through Brian as he made his escape. Brian sped off. He looked at his rearview mirror, and just like that, they were gone, vanished, as if they had never been there at all. But they had, and he knew deep in his bones that they had meant him harm. And with that, Brian Bethel's name became forever tied to the legend, a legend he never meant to create because to him it was very real. The summer air in Virginia hung thick, restless heat simmering off the pavement. The cicadas buzzed their endless tunes, but Harold barely heard them. His mind was elsewhere, lost in thought. His shoes scuffed against the dusty road leading home. That was when he saw him, a boy, leaning against a fence just ahead. The posture was wrong, too stiff, too unnatural, like he had been placed there rather than choosing to rest. Harold hesitated, the back of his neck prickling, but manners were manners. "Hey," he called casually. No response. Harold took a slow step forward, then another. Something was wrong. His instincts whispered it first, but logic chased after. Why did the boy look off? His clothes were nondescript, like he belonged here, but his stillness was too perfect. Then finally, the child spoke. "I want to go to your house. You're going to walk me up to your house." The voice was hollow, no emotion, no request, only statement. Harold swallowed hard, suddenly aware of how alone he was. It wasn't until the boy moved, just a slight tilt of his chin, that Harold saw. Black, entirely black, no whites, just an abyss where human eyes should be. Every part of Harold's body screamed, "Run!" But he couldn't. His legs betrayed him, locked in place as though the earth itself held him prisoner. The boy stepped forward. "Now, don't you run away from me." Something unnatural slithered between the words, an unseen force coiling around his very will. His breath was coming faster now, shallow, desperate. "Get out." Harold moved before thinking, taking a step back, then another, and then finally his body obeyed. He bolted, his feet hammering against the pavement, lungs burning. He heard something behind him, a sound that would haunt him forever. Not a scream, but something wrong, a guttural wail, stretched too long, too unnatural, like the cry of a dying animal mixed with something worse. Harold didn't look back. He ran until the front porch of his home loomed in sight. His parents saw the terror in his face before he even spoke. His father grabbed his rifle, his mother a rosary. But when his father stormed out into the yard, gun ready, the boy at the fence was gone. Still, his mother insisted, "Go to the priest." Something dark had seen him that night, and something dark had wanted inside. The clock on the wall read 3:01 a.m. The gas station was silent, except for the distant hum of the flickering fluorescent lights. Then, everything went dark. The attendant cursed under his breath, fumbling for his phone. The screen cast a weak glow, illuminating the cramped aisles and the register. He needed the generator, fast. Outside, beyond the small halo of light spilling through the window, the Louisiana night was thick, the shadows stretching endlessly beyond the edge of the lot. The generator sputtered to life, restoring only dim lighting at the register and a few weak floodlights outside. The rest of the store was swallowed in darkness. Then he saw them. 3 figures, too small to be adults, pedaling towards the station on bikes, cutting through the black as if it welcomed them. The attendant stiffened, watching as they approached the glass door. They stopped, silent. Their presence felt wrong. Kids had no business being out here this late, but these ones didn't fidget, didn't glance around, didn't look unsure. They just stared. Something gnawed at the back of his mind, but he shook it off. He stepped forward and cracked the door open. The night air was colder than it should have been. "You all right?" he asked cautiously. The girl, the smallest of the three, tilted her head. "Can we use your phone?" The voice was soft, barely above a whisper. The attendant blinked, relief mixed with unease. Yeah, sure." He held out his cell, but as she reached out, the light from his screen hit her face just right, and his stomach dropped. Black, pure black, just empty sockets of darkness swallowing her pupils whole. He nearly dropped his phone. Her face was eerily calm. "No," she said. "I need the real one." She pointed past him toward the landline inside. A wave of cold, instinctual, hit him like a freight train. Do not let her in. His mouth went dry, heart hammering in his chest. Every fiber of his being screamed. "No," he whispered, stumbling back. The children didn't move. He slammed the door, locking it, forcing his breath to steady. His legs shook as he backed away, staring at them through the glass. They remained motionless for a moment, still watching him, those horrible, abyssal eyes unblinking. Then, without a word, they turned, hopped onto their bikes, vanished into the dark. The attendant barely slept that morning. As soon as his shift ended, he rushed to the security office to check the footage. Nothing. The outage had wiped it clean. The cameras never restarted with the generator. No proof, no evidence, only the bone-deep certainty that something had stood there last night, and it had wanted in. Something evil. The hum of the cooling units filled the air, a steady noise beneath the glow of fluorescent lights. Noetic exhaled a plume of smoke into the damp Ohio morning, rubbing the exhaustion from his eyes, the air dense with the weight of the coming dawn. Then, across the street, he saw them. Two boys, standing too still, watching him. He took another drag, trying to shake the unease creeping into his bones. They weren't moving. They weren't blinking. With a slow inhale, he crushed his cigarette beneath his boot and headed back inside, locking the door behind him. He chalked it up to paranoia, the late hour, the fatigue, but the feeling lingered, clawing at the edges of his mind. He turned to the monitors, pulse spiking. They were there, just outside the entrance now, standing before the camera like they knew he was watching, like they could see him beyond the lens. His breath hitched. Through the intercom, his voice wavered. What do you need?" "Nothing," No words. Only a slow, deliberate motion, a beckoning gesture. Come outside. Noetic swallowed hard, his skin cold despite the heat of the equipment around him. He pressed the button again, forcing steel into his voice. Leave. They didn't. They only stared. Seconds stretched into minutes, their presence thick in the stale air. Then, finally, Noetic moved toward the door. He had to chase them off. He reached for the handle, hesitated, then glanced through the one-way glass, and his stomach dropped. Eyes that weren't eyes, just voids. Every instinct in his body screamed at him, do not open that door. But before he could react, before he could even breathe, one of them spoke. That will not be necessary, sir. His body locked up. We simply need to use your phone. Can you let us in? The voice was eerily calm. Noetic's hand recoiled from the knob as cold terror gripped his spine. He reached for his cell phone instead. I'll call the police, he warned. Neither moved. Not even a flicker of emotion crossed their unnaturally blank faces. He locked the door, double-checking the mechanisms before stumbling back to the monitors. Only one boy remained, but then, with sickening realization, Noetic saw the other, positioned out back, staring into the rear camera, watching, waiting. By 6 a.m. they had moved, not away, not down the road, just into a blind spot where no cameras reached. Noetic watched the monitors, his breath swallowing, waiting for them to return. They didn't. They simply vanished. The police arrived later that morning, but the boys were gone. And Noetic knew whatever had stood outside his door that night meant him harm. The storm roared outside, swallowing the world in white. It was past midnight, the wind howling like some feral thing clawing at the windows. The woman sat curled beneath a blanket, barely paying mind to the blizzard until the knocking started. Loud, urgent. She froze, pulse spiking. Who would be out in this? Her first thought was an accident, a stranded driver, someone desperate for help. She crept to the window. No car. The knocking came again, too hard, too demanding. She felt it before she understood it, an unnatural wave of dread crawling up her spine. Something wasn't right. She swallowed, backing away, and woke her husband. When they opened the door, the storm rushed in, but it wasn't the wind that sent cold terror into her chest. It was them. 2 children, a boy and a girl, standing still, pale faces, expressionless, clothing too thin for the blizzard, waiting. Her husband hesitated. She saw it in his face, the same hesitation gnawing at her. But they were just kids. They let them in. The second the door clicked shut, regret seeped in, suffocating the warmth of their home. The atmosphere shifted. Their 4 cats, normally curious, hid, except for one, the oldest, who hissed. Fur bristling like static had crawled up its spine. Something was wrong. The woman tried speaking to them. Are you lost? What happened? Do you want some cocoa? Each question came with the same flat response. Our parents will be here soon. Nothing more. She felt it then, that same sixth sense that had crawled up her throat at the door. But she made them cocoa anyway. When she came back with the mugs, the light from the kitchen caught their faces just right, and that's when she saw it. Black. Their eyes weren't human, just gaping pits of endless void. Her breath hitched in her throat. The bathroom? The girl asked. She couldn't speak, just pointed. Then the house shuddered. All at once, everything collapsed into chaos. Her husband gasped, gripping his face, nose bleeding. The lights died, plunging them into darkness. She turned sharply, trying to reach for him, but they were there, standing at the hallway entrance, watching. Our parents are here. She could barely move, barely breathe as they stepped past her. The front door opened. The blizzard screamed into the house, wind whipping through the hall as she stumbled forward, just enough to see. A car waited in the snow, black, sleek, unmarked. Two figures stood beside it, tall, unnaturally thin, watching. The children climbed in. The car pulled away, gone. That should already be terrifying, but what came after? 3 of her cats vanished in the following months. The one that had hissed, found in a pool of blood, hemorrhaged to death. Her husband's nosebleeds worsened. Then came the cancer. Skin cancer, but he'd barely spend time outdoors. And her? Nosebleeds, fatigue, slow, crawling sickness. She never saw the children again, but she felt them. She knew in the marrow of her bones letting them in had cost her everything.